My sister forgot to put on clothes again and rushed out of her bedroom. Stark naked. She crashed straight into my boyfriend's arms, lifting her gorgeous face. She looked up at him with a naive, clueless smile. That was exactly how my last 5 boyfriends disappeared. 4 of them had immediate physical reactions on the spot, so I slapped them and broke up with them. The other one managed to keep his cool, but in the middle of the night, he climbed up the balcony with his bare hands and sneaked into my sister's bed. When I cried to my parents about it, they brushed it off. Bianca is just a bit airhead. She just forgot to put on clothes. If she did it on purpose, would she run around naked every single time with such biased, unreasonable parents? I didn't dare to date anyone for 4 years until I met Ethan Vance. He was the most upright and intelligent man I had ever known. When we started discussing marriage, I brought him home to meet my parents. Before he arrived, I begged Bianca repeatedly, "Please just wear some clothes." Bianca nodded obediently. But the moment my boyfriend walked through the door, Bianca was running around the house naked again. Seeing the triumphant smirk at the corner of her mouth, I suddenly realized her cluelessness was just an act.
Put on entirely for me.
Too bad for her. My boyfriend hated idiots more than anything. I had just brought Ethan through the front door. Suddenly, the bedroom door clicked open. Bianca rushed out completely naked, acting as if she had absolutely no idea there was a guest. In the living room, she crashed straight into Ethan's chest. "Oh my gosh," she gasped, hurriedly covering her chest, her eyes welling up with tears instantly. "I am so sorry. I forgot we had company." She looked up, her wide, misty eyes staring helplessly at Ethan. That naive, innocent look. I had seen it way too many times. That was exactly how my first 5 boyfriends had fallen into her trap. "What the hell do you keep a naked psycho in this house?" Ethan closed his eyes instantly. Relying on his years of taekwondo training, he delivered a swift, powerful kick that sent Bianca flying onto the floor. A loud thud echoed through the hallway, hard enough to shake dust off the walls. The air in the hallway froze for 2 seconds. Then came Bianca's sharpest stereotypical crying. "What happened? What is going on?" My mother, Eleanor, rushed out of the master bedroom wearing an apron, still holding some half-folded laundry. My father, Richard, also poked his head out from the balcony. Ethan hid behind me, keeping his eyes squeezed shut, not daring to open them. "I am fine. I just kicked a crazy exhibitionist. But that crazy chick might be in bad shape," Ethan said, his voice cold as ice on the floor. Bianca held her chest with one hand and covered her lower body with the other, sobbing uncontrollably. She bit her lower lip, her eyes filled with tears, looking utterly pathetic and helpless. "Then you kicked me. It hurt so bad." Her voice was soft and sweet, trembling just the right amount. "I just have a bad memory. I just have a bad memory. I forgot we had a guest over. Please don't be mad at me, okay?" As she spoke, she shrunk back like a frightened little rabbit. Eleanor immediately rushed over to hug her protectively, wrapping a coat around her. "You silly girl, why are you running around naked again? And Chloe, you are to blame, too. You know your sister is forgetful. Before you brought an outsider home, why didn't you go to her room and check on her first?" The first wave of moral gaslighting had landed precisely on me. I looked at Eleanor's face, which took it all for granted. As usual, she blamed me for everything. Bianca was always the pure, innocent one who just made silly mistakes, and I, as the younger sister, was expected to clean up her messes and prevent her disasters at all times. "Mother, I told her 3 times before I came home," I stated flatly. Bianca's tears spilled over. "Sure, Chloe. I am so sorry. I really didn't mean to. I was just thinking about something else and got distracted." She looked up at Ethan, her eyes shimmering like water. "Ethan, please don't blame Chloe. It is all my fault for being so stupid. Next book, pick me. Girl performance. First admit guilt, then show vulnerability, and finally defend me." To highlight her kindness and my pettiness. My first 2 boyfriends had died under this exact combo. I turned to look at Ethan. I wanted to see if his eyes, which were usually as clear as mountain springs,
Could see through this bitch.
Ethan looked at her. There was no warmth in his eyes. Looked at her as if you were watching a poorly acted comedy show. "You really are stupid," Ethan said. His voice wasn't loud, but every word was crystal clear. Bianca froze. Eleanor froze, too. They probably never expected anyone to step right on her face when she offered herself up as a clueless beauty. "Since you knew there was an adult male coming over, and you still managed to forget to wear clothes, that is not being forgetful. That is a severe lack of basic life skills," then said, stuffing his hands into his coat pockets and looking down at Bianca. The silence in the room was deafening. Bianca's face, which was wearing a delicate no makeup look, instantly lost all color. She froze on the spot, even forgetting to shed her tears. How dare you speak to her like that? Richard couldn't hold back anymore. He marched over and pointed a finger at Ethan. This is my house. What is wrong with my daughter not wearing clothes in her own home?
You are an outsider.
You got a free show and now you're throwing a tantrum. Let me correct you, Ethan said, meeting Richard's gaze without flinching. First, I didn't look. That flat body of hers is nowhere near my type. Second, she opened the door herself. And the hallway is a common area. If you think it is good parenting to let your daughter run around naked in common areas, then I seriously question your family's values. He turned to me. Chloe, where is your coat? I pointed to the coat on the sofa. Ethan walked over, picked it up and draped it over my shoulders, gently fixing my hair. Let's go. The air in here is making me sick. I looked at my parents' livid faces and Bianca, who looked like she was about to collapse. Instead of the panic I used to feel, a wave of unprecedented satisfaction washed over me. Okay. I put on my coat and followed him out. Eleanor was shaking with rage behind us. Chloe, if you dare to walk out of the store with him today, don't you ever call me mother again. I stopped walking, but I didn't turn around. Whatever. Ethan pulled the door open, and a gust of cold winter wind brushed in. Chloe, mother's just saying that because she is angry. You know, she has a soft heart. Bianca screamed from behind. Her voice had lost its soft, sweet tone and was filled with obvious panic. Ethan let out a low chuckle. Hear that, he whispered to me, looking down. Even a cornered rat will show its teeth when it is desperate. You were pretty brutal back there, I said, as I buckled my seatbelt in the passenger seat. Ethan started the car, his long fingers resting on the steering wheel. Brutal. I was just stating facts. If she were truly stupid, she wouldn't have known to get angry when I insulted her. She should have agreed with my analysis. He turned to the steering wheel and drove out of the neighborhood. Her acting skills are worse than the fresh grads working at my reception desk. I looked out the window at the passing streetlights. The heavy stone that had weighed on my chest for over 20 years felt like it had finally been cracked open. Since we were kids, Bianca had always been the center of the universe. When she ruined my homework, Eleanor would say, "Your sister is just clumsy. Can't you just write it again?" When she took the dress I liked, Richard would say, "Your sister loves pretty things. Why can't you just let her have it?" Even when I started dating, Bianca only had to act innocent and shed a few tears in front of my boyfriends. And those guys would find her adorable and think I was being bitter and mean. No one had ever torn off her mask as ruthlessly as Ethan did. My phone kept buzzing in my bag. I pulled it out. It was a string of voice messages from Eleanor, one after another. The red notification dots were glaring. I tapped the first one. Chloe, have you lost your mind? What kind of classless man are you dating? How dare he talk to your sister like that? Bianca has never heard a harsh word in her life. And today she was so humiliated, she is crying under her blanket, hyperventilating. I listened to it with a blank face. I tapped the second one. You make that Vance guy come back and apologize to your sister.
Right now.
Otherwise, don't you ever come back to this house. We raised you and fed you, not for you to team up with some stranger to bully your sister. Ethan heard every word clearly from the driver's seat, let out a cold sneer. Does your mother only watch cheap soap operas? That script is straight out of a bad 90s drama. I locked my phone screen and tossed it back into my bag. I am used to it. Being used to it doesn't make it right. Ethan stopped the car at a red light and turned to look at me. Are you planning on taking this forever? I looked into his clear, deep eyes.
No, I said.
I want her to pay back everything she owes me with interest. Corner of Ethan's mouth curved into a beautiful smirk. Let me know if you need any help. I love watching fake people crash and burn. The next morning, I was in the middle of a meeting at work when the receptionist Lily sent me a Snapchat message. Chloe, your sister is here to see you. She is waiting at the front desk. I frowned. Bianca rarely came to my office. She always complained that my fast-paced tech company was too depressing. I walked out of the meeting room and headed to the lobby. Bianca was wearing a classy tweed jacket, holding a fancy thermos in her hand. Seeing me, she immediately walked up. Chloe, are you done with work? Her voice was as soft as ever with no trace of yesterday's humiliation. What do you want? I didn't reach for the thermos. Bianca didn't seem embarrassed. She set the thermos down on the reception desk. Mother was so upset she couldn't sleep last night. I was thinking yesterday's incident was indeed caused by my forgetfulness. And Ethan might have misunderstood me. She tilted her head slightly, posing her slim, fair neck. I made some chicken soup. I wanted you to give it to Ethan.
Consider it my apology to him.
Several colleagues passing by turned to look at us. To outsiders, she looked like a sweet, caring older sister, trying to patch things up for her difficult younger sister. Looking at her performance, I felt a wave of nausea. No thanks. He doesn't drink things from questionable sources. Bianca's eyes instantly welled with tears again. Chloe, are you still mad?
At me.
I know Ethan is amazing, and you are worried I might steal him from you. But I really don't have those intentions. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was just loud enough for the receptionist and several passing co-workers to hear. This was her classic move, preemptive strike by being the first to say, "You are worried I might steal him." No matter what I said next, I would look insecure and jealous. This were the old me. I would have dragged her aside to compromise just to save face. But not today. I took out my phone, opened the voice recorder app, and placed it face up on the reception desk. "Keep going," I said, looking at her. "Tell me more about how you plan on stealing him. Go into detail." Bianca's smile froze on her face. She clearly didn't expect me to just stop caring about my reputation, let alone display the recording screen right in front of her. "Chloe, what are you doing?" Her voice faltered, and her eyes kept darting toward my phone screen. "Since you love acting in public so much, let's make it a full production." I leaned against the reception desk, crossing my arms. "Did you say I am afraid of you stealing him? Prove it to us. How are you going to do it? With your cheap unbuttoned pajamas? Or with the soup that probably has God knows what in it?" Few co-workers watching nearby let out soft chuckles. People in tech companies never lacked a nose for drama. Bianca understood my sarcasm, and her face flushed crimson. "Chloe Miller, you've gone too far." She finally dropped the act, her tears vanishing in an instant. "I came here out of the goodness of my heart.
To bring you guys something.
And you are trying to intimidate me with the recording." She reached out to grab my phone. I quickly snatched it away. "Why aren't you crying anymore?" I looked at her coldly. "Where is your helpless airhead filter? Where is that innocent victimized look? Giving up on the act so soon?" Bianca gritted her teeth in anger. But with so many eyes on her, she had to press her rage. "Fine, Chloe. You think that Vance guy can protect you forever, don't you?" She leaned in close, whispering so only the two of us could hear. "Who do you think you are? Since we were kids, whenever I wanted something, Mom and Dad gave it to me. Your last two exes. I barely had to wiggle my finger and they came begging like dogs. You think Ethan Vance is any different? Men are all the same. Just you wait. I'll have him begging on his knees to lick my toes." Sooner or later, she thought I had stopped the recording. She thought whispering made her safe. But she didn't know that my phone was the latest model, with incredible audio capture. And she definitely didn't know that the recording app was still running in the background, even though the screen had gone black. Looking at her face, slightly distorted by jealousy and competitive rage, I found her incredibly pathetic.
"Sure," I said,
taking a step back to create distance. "I'll be waiting." Bianca sneered, picked up the thermos from the desk and stomped away in her high heels. The glass doors of the lobby slid shut behind Bianca, the sharp click of her designer heels fading into the hum of the office air conditioning. For a few seconds, the reception area remained perfectly still. Lily, the receptionist, kept her eyes glued to her monitor, though her fingers hovered motionless over her keyboard. Two developers from the product team, who had been waiting by the elevator, suddenly found the ceiling tiles incredibly fascinating. I looked down at my phone. The screen was black, but when I tapped it, the recording interface emerged from the background. The timer read 7:42. I pressed stop, saved the file as a local backup, and uploaded a copy to my personal cloud drive. "Chloe." Lily's voice was barely a whisper. She looked up, her expression a mix of shock and secondhand embarrassment. "Your sister, is she always like that?" "Only when she has an audience," I said, my voice steadier than I expected.
I
Felt a strange, cold calm settling over me. The knot that had lived in my chest for years, the one that tightened every time Bianca opened her mouth or shed a tear, was finally beginning to loosen. "Thanks, Lily. If she comes back, please, don't let her pass the gate." "Absolutely not," Lily said, shaking her head. "I'll flag her security badge. Or, well, she doesn't have one, but I'll make sure she stays outside." I walked back to my desk in the open plan office. The familiar background noise of mechanical keyboards and quiet murmurs from stand-up meetings usually helped me focus, but today my mind was running a mile a minute. I sat down, put on my noise-canceling headphones, and played the audio file through my earbuds. Bianca's voice, stripped of its sweet, breathless timbre, sounded hollow and
Sharp.
since we were kids, whenever I wanted something, Mom and Dad gave it to
Me.
your last two exes. I barely had to wiggle my finger. Men are all the
Same.
just you wait. I'll have him begging on his knees. I paused the recording. I didn't feel the burning anger I used to feel when my ex-boyfriends turned their backs on me, whispering that I was too rigid or insensitive to Bianca's gentle nature. Instead, I felt a profound sense of
Clarity.
Bianca wasn't a genius mastermind. She was a spoiled child who had never been told no, enabled by two parents who preferred the easy lie of a fragile daughter over the difficult truth of a manipulative one. I pulled up my chat with Ethan and sent him the audio file without any context. A minute passed. Then two.
My phone vibrated on the desk.
It was Ethan. Hey, I said, keeping my voice low. I just listened to it, Ethan said. His tone wasn't shocked. It was practical, almost analytical, like he was reviewing a poorly written contract.
She's
Remarkably consistent. The transition from the helpless victim to the petty blackmailer is almost seamless. If she put this much effort into a career, she'd probably be a director by now. A small laugh escaped my lips. She thinks she can get to you. She literally told me she'd have you begging. She's welcome to try, Ethan said, a dry amusement in his voice. But she lacks basic operational security. Threatening someone while they have a phone in their hand is a rookie mistake. What do you want to do with this? I don't want to just post it online or send it to my parents yet, I admitted, leaning back in my chair. If I send it to Eleanor and Richard, they'll find a way to excuse it. They'll say I provoked her, or that she was just saying things out of anger because you hurt her yesterday. They always build a bridge for her to walk over. You're right, Ethan agreed. People like your parents don't change their minds because of evidence. They change their minds when the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain. We need to let her play her hand. When she thinks she's about to win, she'll make the kind of mistake they can't sweep under the rug. Are you sure you're up for this? I asked, suddenly feeling a twinge of guilt. She's going to target you. She's going to try every trick she has. Chloe. Ethan's voice softened, losing its sharp edge. I spent 4 years watching you carry this weight alone. If your sister wants to play a game, we'll let her. But we're setting the rules. Over the next week, Bianca began her campaign. She didn't try to contact me again, but Ethan kept me updated with screenshots. It started with LinkedIn. A professional-looking account with a headshot of Bianca looking soft and intellectual appeared in Ethan's, who's viewed your profile section. 2 days later, she sent him a connection request with a message. Hi Ethan, I wanted to reach out and formally apologize for the misunderstanding last weekend. I feel terrible about how things ended, and I don't want my clumsiness to cause a rift between you and Chloe. I'd love to buy you a coffee sometime to properly apologize. No pressure at all. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Ethan showed me the message over dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant we liked. Did you decline? I asked, twirling some pasta on my fork. No, I left it on read, Ethan said. If I decline, she'll try a different, more desperate angle. If I leave it on pending, she'll assume I'm hesitating.
It
keeps her focused on a single point of entry. You're dangerously logical, I murmured, looking at him. It's just risk management, he smiled, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. How are things at home? Have your parents called? Every day, I sighed. Eleanor leaves these long, theatrical voicemails about how Bianca is wasting away and how she can't eat because of the trauma of being kicked. Richard sent a text saying I'm ungrateful and that they're considering removing my name from the family property deed if I don't bring you over to apologize. The property they bought with your inheritance from your grandmother? Ethan asked, his eyes narrowing slightly. The very one, I said. They took the money to buy the suburban house, promising me 1/3 of the equity. But of course, there's nothing in writing. It was all family trust. We'll look into that too, Ethan said quietly. But first, your sister is stepping up her game. He was right. By Friday, Bianca's tactics transitioned from digital to physical. Ethan's office was located in a high-rise downtown, surrounded by coffee shops and small parks. On Friday afternoon, he sent me a short video clip from his dashcam. In the video, Ethan's car was parked in the office garage. A figure in a light beige trench coat, undeniably Bianca, was standing near the exit, holding a small paper bag from a bakery. She was looking around, pretending to check her phone, but her eyes kept darting toward the elevators. She's been standing there for 20 minutes, Ethan texted. I'm going to walk. Out now. I've got my phone recording in my breast pocket. My heart hammered against my ribs. I sat at my desk, unable to focus on my spreadsheets, waiting for his update. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. How did it go? I asked immediately. It was a masterclass in amateur dramatics. Ethan's voice was filled with quiet laughter. I came out of the elevator, and she immediately tripped over her own feet, dropping her bakery bag. A pastry rolled right to my shoe. And let me guess, she looked up with tears in her eyes?
Exactly.
She gasped, said, "Oh, Ethan, what a coincidence," and tried to grab my arm to steady herself. I took a step back, and she almost landed on the concrete. What did you say? I asked her if her inner ear was damaged because she seems to have severe balance issues. Then I told her that if she didn't stop loitering around my office building, I'd have the building security issue a formal trespass warning. She tried to play the "I was just bringing you pastries" as an apology card, but I told her I don't accept food from strangers, especially those with questionable hygiene. You didn't. I did. Her face turned a very interesting shade of purple, but then she tried to recover. She whispered, "Ethan, why are you being so cold?"
Chloe must have told you awful things about me.
She's always been jealous of how much Mom and Dad love me. She wants to keep you all to herself because she knows she's plain. I felt a cold prickle of familiar pain, but Ethan's next words brushed it away. I told her, Ethan said, that Chloe doesn't need to say a word.
I have eyes.
And I have a brain. And then I walked away. She didn't follow, but she was glaring at my back. I could feel the heat from here. She's going to explode, I said, a mixture of anxiety and anticipation bubbling in my chest. She's never been rejected this many times in a row. Let her explode, Ethan said. In fact, I think we should give her the perfect stage. The opportunity came 3 days later in the form of an elegant, heavy card, delivered to my apartment. It was an invitation to Eleanor and Richard's 30th wedding anniversary. The event was to be held at the Grand Pavilion, a high-end country club in the suburbs where my parents spent most of their weekend leisure time.
It was a
formal affair, with over 100 guests, mostly my father's business associates, family friends, and extended relatives. Inside the card was a handwritten note from Eleanor. Chloe, we are celebrating 30 years of marriage. Despite your recent behavior, we are still your parents and we expect you to be there.
More
importantly, we expect you to bring Ethan. This is your chance to repair the damage he caused to our family's reputation, especially after the way he treated Bianca. If you do not show up, or if you come alone, do not bother calling us again. We will know exactly where your loyalties lie. I stared at the note, feeling the heavy, familiar weight of their emotional blackmail. For years, this was their ultimate weapon, the threat of exile.
If I
didn't comply, I was the difficult child who ruined family events and broke my mother's heart. They really love ultimatums, don't they? Ethan said, reading over my shoulder. They do, I said, tossing the card onto the coffee table. They think this is their home turf, the country club, their friends, their rules.
If we go, they'll
try to corner us. They'll probably try to force you to make a public toast, apologizing to Bianca. Then we should absolutely go, Ethan said, a sharp, cold light in his eyes. But we aren't going there to apologize. What are we going to do? We are going to give them exactly what they want, a public resolution, Ethan
said.
He sat down beside me, taking my hands. Chloe, your parents and your sister have spent your entire life rewriting reality. They tell a lie, they repeat it until they believe it, and then they force you to live in it. The only way to break that loop is to make the truth so loud, so undeniable, that their lie collapses under its own weight. I looked at him, feeling the steady strength of his resolve. How do we do that? We let Bianca make her move, Ethan explained. At a big event like this, she won't be able to resist. She'll want to prove to herself, and to everyone else, that she can take me from you. She'll try to stage a private encounter, where she can either seduce me or set me up.
We just need to ensure that
whatever she does it in front of a mirror. And the recording from the office? We keep that in reserve, Ethan said, along with a few other things I've been looking into. Over the next week, we prepared. Ethan contacted a private investigator to pull the security logs and public records of the suburban house my parents had bought, using my grandmother's inheritance. It turned out my grandmother's will had a Very specific clause. The funds were to be used for the advancement and security of Chloe Miller. My parents had bypassed this by listing themselves as trustees and borrowing the money for a primary residence, promising to repay it when the house was sold or through equity transfer. It was legally gray, bordering on outright fraud. We have them on three fronts, Ethan told me the night before the anniversary: financial manipulation, family fraud, and Bianca's harassment. When we strike completely. No room for excuses. On the night of the anniversary, the air was crisp and cold. The grand pavilion was glowing with warm amber lights, its tall glass windows overlooking a manicured golf course covered in a light frost. Inside, the ballroom was filled with the clinking of champagne flutes and the low murmur of polite conversation. I wore a dark emerald green silk dress, simple, elegant, and structured. Beside me, Ethan was in a tailored charcoal suit. He looked calm, almost detached, like a man attending a routine board meeting rather than a high-stakes family confrontation. As we entered, the room seemed to shift slightly. My parents' friends, who had undoubtedly heard Eleanor's version of the naked sister incident, looked at us with quiet, whispering curiosity. Eleanor and Richard were standing near the main stage, holding glasses of champagne. Eleanor was dressed in an elaborate silver gown, her hair styled in a stiff, immovable updrift. Richard looked imposing in his tuxedo, though his face hardened the moment he saw us. "You actually showed up," Richard said as we approached, his voice low and gruff. "Happy anniversary, mother, father," I said, keeping my voice polite and neutral. Eleanor didn't look at me. Her eyes were fixed on Ethan, cold and demanding. "I hope you brought your manners tonight, young man. We have a lot of respectable people here. I don't want any of your aggressive outbursts." "I am always polite to those who deserve it, Mrs. Miller," Ethan said, his voice smooth and entirely unbothered. "Where's Bianca?" I asked, looking around the room. "She's in the lounge upstairs, trying to calm her nerves," Eleanor said, her tone dripping with accusation. "She was terrified of coming tonight because of him. She's fragile, Chloe. But she insisted on coming because she wanted to support us. She has a good heart, unlike some people." "I'm sure she does," I said. "We'll talk about the apology later," Richard muttered, leaning in. "Before the main toast, I expect you, Ethan, to take Bianca aside and make things right. I don't want any tension during my speech." "I'll certainly speak to her," Ethan said with a slight, polite nod. "In fact, I'd like to get it over with." Richard looked satisfied, thinking his authority had prevailed. "Good. She's in the library on the second floor. It's quiet there." As we walked away from my parents, Ethan leaned in close to my ear. "The library. A classic, secluded setting. She's waiting for me." "I'm coming with you," I said. "No, you stay near the bottom of the stairs," Ethan whispered. "If you're there, she'll see you and play the victim again. I need her to think she has me alone. But keep your phone ready. I'm starting a live stream to your phone right now." Ethan tapped his phone, setting up a private, encrypted video stream from his breast pocket camera, a high-end, discreet device he used for professional site inspections. On my own screen, a clear, high-definition feed of the staircase and the hallway upstairs appeared. "Be careful," I said, my heart starting to race. "Always," he smiled, and began to walk up the grand wooden staircase. I stood near the base of the stairs, holding a glass of sparkling water, my eyes glued to my phone screen. On the display, I watched Ethan's perspective as he walked down the quiet, carpeted hallway of the second floor. He reached the heavy oak doors of the library and pushed them open. The library was dim, lit only by a crackling fireplace and a few reading lamps. Standing by the window, looking out at the frosty lawn, was Bianca. She had abandoned her usual innocent pastel sweaters. Tonight, she wore a deep red, backless satin dress that clung to her figure. She held a glass of red wine, her hair falling in loose, artfully messy waves over her shoulders. As the door clicked, she turned around. For a split second, her eyes flashed with a sharp, predatory triumph, but it was quickly replaced by a soft, startled gasp. "Ethan," she whispered, setting her glass down. "I didn't think you'd actually call me." "Your father said you wanted to talk," Ethan said. He stayed near the entrance, his voice cool and distant. "I did," she said, taking a slow, swaying step toward him. "I've been feeling so terrible about everything. The way Chloe has been treating you. The lies she must have told you about me." "Chloe doesn't tell lies," Ethan said. "Oh," Ethan, you're so sweet and naive, Bianca sighed, shaking her head with a fragile, sad smile. She was now only a few feet away from him. You don't know her like I do. She's always been jealous of me. Ever since we were little, she couldn't stand it when people looked at me.
She's using you, Ethan.
She knows. You're successful and intelligent, and she's holding on to you like a prize just to show me up. She reached out, her fingers hovering just inches from his lapel. But you deserve someone who actually appreciates you. Someone who isn't so rigid, so bitter. I saw how you looked at me that first day. I know you had to kick me to keep up appearances for her, but we don't have to pretend anymore. Through my phone screen, I felt a wave of disgust but also a strange sense of amusement. She was running her exact, tired playbook. Is that what you think happened? Ethan asked, not moving an inch. You think I kicked you to keep up appearances? I know men, Bianca said, her voice dropping to a sultry, confident whisper. She leaned in closer, her eyes locked onto his. They all want the same thing. They want someone soft.
Someone they can protect.
Chloe is like a block of ice. But me. She reached out and touched his arm. I can be whatever you want. And what about your promise? Ethan asked, his voice entirely flat. The one you made in Chloe's office lobby? That you'd have me begging on my knees to lick your toes. Bianca froze. The seductive smile on her face stiffened. You told her about that? She stammered, her voice losing its breathy
quality.
I didn't have to, Ethan said, taking a deliberate step back, breaking her touch. She recorded it, and I listened to it. You see, Bianca, the problem with people like you is that you assume everyone else is as empty-headed as you.
Pretend to be.
You think a pretty face and a lack of clothes are enough to make up for a complete absence of character. Bianca's face contorted. The fragile, innocent rabbit vanished, replaced by the sharp, angry woman from the office lobby. You think you're so smart, don't you? She spat, her voice dropping its sweet facade entirely. You think you and Chloe are better than me? I can ruin you in 10 seconds, Ethan. All I have to do is scream. All I have to do is tear this dress, run down those stairs, and tell my father you tried to touch me. Who do? You think they'll believe? My father's associates are down there. The police will be here in 5 minutes. She smiled, a cruel, vicious expression. You think your little recording will
Save you?
It's your word against mine, and in this town, my family has lived here for 30 years. You're just an outsider. On my phone, I watched Ethan slowly reach into his suit pocket. He didn't look
Panicked.
He looked like a chess player who had just watched his opponent walk into a 3-move checkmate. Go ahead, Ethan said calmly.
What?
Bianca blinked, confused by his lack of fear. Scream, Ethan said, pointing to the ceiling corner. But before you do, you might want to look at that small black device on the bookshelf. And the one in my breast pocket. We're currently live streaming this entire conversation.
And
If you look closely at the projector screen downstairs. Well, I believe your mother's anniversary slideshow is about to be interrupted. Bianca's eyes went wide. She looked up at the bookshelf, where a small, blinking, wireless camera was nestled between 2 leather-bound books. Then, she looked at Ethan's pocket. You, she whispered, her face draining of all color. You're bluffing. Let's go find out, Ethan said, turning on his heel and walking out of the library. Downstairs in the main ballroom, the lights had just been dimmed. Richard was standing at the podium, a microphone in hand, clearing his throat. Beside him, Eleanor was smiling warmly, looking out at the crowd of family and
friends.
30 years, Richard's voice boomed through the speakers. 30 years of building a life, a family, and a reputation. Tonight, we want to share a few of those memories with you. If we could turn our attention to the main screen. A large projection screen lowered from the ceiling behind the stage. The guests turned, holding their glasses, ready to applaud. I walked quickly to the AV booth at the back of the room, where the technician, a young college kid Ethan had paid a very generous consulting fee to earlier in the evening, was standing ready. Now, the kid whispered, looking at me nervously. Now, I said, instead of the childhood photos of Bianca and me, or my parents' wedding pictures, the screen suddenly flickered to life with a high-definition video
Feed.
The audio system hummed, and then Bianca's voice, amplified by the ballroom's state-of-the-art surround sound, echoed through the hall. I can ruin you in 10 seconds, Ethan. All I have to do is scream. All I have To do is tear this dress, run down those stairs, and tell my father you tried to touch me. The ballroom went dead silent. A woman in the front row gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. On the giant screen, the video showed a crystal-clear view of the library. Bianca was standing there in her red satin dress, her face twisted in a sneer, looking completely different from the sweet, fragile girl everyone in the room
New.
Who do you think they'll believe? My father's associates are down there. You're just an outsider. Richard froze at the podium, his face turning an angry, mottled red. Eleanor's jaw dropped, her glass of champagne slipping from her fingers and shattering on the hardwood floor with a loud, sharp crash. Turn it off. Turn it off right now. Richard roared into his microphone, his voice cracking with panic. But the technician, following my instructions, didn't budge. The video continued. Ethan's voice played, calm and steady. And what about your promise? The one you made in Chloe's office lobby? That you'd have me begging on my knees to lick your toes. And then, the audio transitioned seamlessly to the recording from the office lobby. Since we were kids, whenever I wanted something, Mom and Dad gave it to me. Your last two exes, I barely had to wiggle my finger, and they came begging like dogs.
Men are all the same.
Just you wait. The whispers in the crowd erupted like a wave of static. Relatives were staring at each other in utter disbelief. Several of Richard's business partners looked down at their drinks, clearly wishing they were anywhere else. What is the meaning of this? Richard bellowed, slamming his fist onto the podium. He glared across the room, his eyes locking onto me standing by the AV
Booth.
Chloe, shut this garbage off. This is your sister.
How dare you?
Humiliate her like this. I didn't humiliate her, father, I said, my voice projecting clearly through the room as I stepped forward, holding my own microphone. She did that herself. For years, you and mother told me I was the problem. You told me Bianca was just forgetful when she ran around naked in front of my boyfriends. You told me I was bitter and jealous when she took my things. Tonight, I just wanted everyone to see the pure, innocent Bianca you've spent 20 years protecting. At that moment, the library doors upstairs burst open, and Bianca came running down the grand staircase. She was pale, shaking and crying, but this time, the tears weren't an act. They were tears of absolute, crushing panic.
Mom.
Dad, she screamed, looking around the room at the horrified faces of their friends. It's not true. It's a setup. Ethan forced me to say those things. He threatened me. Really, Bianca? Ethan walked down the stairs behind her, his hands casually in his pockets. He didn't look angry. He looked almost bored. He held up his phone, showing the live recording still running. I threatened you into confessing to blackmail and harassment? In a room with two separate cameras? You monster. Eleanor shrieked, rushing toward Ethan, her silver dress rustling loudly. You've ruined our family. You've ruined my daughter's life. Your daughter ruined her own life, Mrs. Miller, Ethan said, stepping aside as Eleanor tried to grab him. And as for your family, I believe we have one more piece of business to settle. Ethan nodded to me. I walked to the stage, placing a manila envelope on the podium right in front of my father. What is this? Richard hissed, his hands shaking as he stared at the envelope. It's a copy of grandmother's will, I said, my voice calm, cold, and entirely devoid of the fear I had carried for 2 decades. Along with the financial audit of the suburban house you bought, you used my trust fund to secure the mortgage under your names, promising to return the equity if you don't transfer my portion of the home's value to my account by tomorrow morning. My lawyer will file a formal suit for trust fraud and financial exploitation. Richard's face drained of color. He looked at the envelope, then at his business partners in the crowd, who were already turning away, whispering among themselves. His reputation, the only thing he cared about more than Bianca's fragile ego, was dissolving in real time. Chloe, Eleanor gasped, her voice trembling. We are your parents. How could you do this to us? You were parents to Bianca, I said, looking her straight in the eyes. To me, you were just landlords who demanded rent in the form of my silence. I'm done paying. I turned to Ethan. He was already waiting by the exit, holding my coat. I walked down the center aisle of the ballroom, past my weeping sister, past my frozen parents, and past the crowd of silent, stunned guests. For the first time in 24 years, my shoulders felt light. We sat in the car, the heater blowing warm air against the winter chill.
The
Lights of the grand pavilion faded in the rearview mirror as Ethan drove us back.
toward the city.
My phone was vibrating in my bag, a constant, frantic buzz of text messages and missed calls from relatives, cousins, and my parents. I didn't open them. Instead, I turned the phone off and slipped it into the glove compartment. Are you okay? Ethan asked, his eyes briefly shifting from the road to look at
Me.
I am, I said, a slow, genuine smile spreading across my face.
I really am. I
Thought I'd feel guilty or sad, but I just feel clean. That's because you didn't destroy anything, Chloe, Ethan said softly.
You.
Just stopped holding up the walls of a house that was already rotten.
It was. Always going to fall.
You just chose not to be buried under it. Thank you, Ethan, I said, leaning my head against his shoulder. For believing.
Me.
For standing by me. Always, he said, his fingers wrapping around mine, warm and steady. Outside, the city skyline began to appear, its thousands of lights glittering. Like stars in the cold, clear night. The weight of the past was gone, left behind in the ruins of a beautifully painted lie.